Welcome, caviar connoisseurs, to this week's episode of Sports Caviar. My name is Javi, and I'll be your host this evening. Can't wait to start talking about all the fun topics. We have a lot of stuff happening in the NFL. Major League Baseball had some juice as well. Christmas time is around the corner, and then some picks. If you can't tell, there's some merch that has arrived. Be on the lookout for some giveaways we're going to be doing on Facebook Live for that. They're very comfortable, actually, by the way. There's all different sizes and colors. Youth is available as well. Would make a great stocking stuffer for all you connoisseurs out there. As I mentioned, Christmas is around the corner. It got me thinking, what's the top 3 Christmas movies of all time? In my opinion, I would go with Home Alone 1, although there was some debate with Home Alone 1 and 2 within my family. There was definitely some votes for Home Alone 2 in there. Can't argue with it. I think you gotta go with the OG. A couple movies that don't get a lot of publicity, I would say, for me anyway, is Christmas with the Cranks would be following number 2, and Four Christmases with Vince Vaughn and Reese Witherspoon would fall into the 3 slot. If you haven't seen those movies, great Christmas movies. I would say that Elf, Polar Express, and Jingle Jangle are my honorable mentions for the top 3. So let's get talking about some sports here. In the world of Major League Baseball, there was a lot of things that happened over the past week here. Obviously, Juan Soto goes to the Yankees. If you guys didn't know, I am a Yankee fan. I was excited about it. Not gonna lie, that we needed to have some power on the left side of the plate there, and he fills that slot in perfectly. He'll probably slot in right behind Judge. The thing that is a little bit dicey about the Juan Soto trade is the fact that the Yankees only have him for 1 year, and then he's going to be asking for more than likely around $500 million, 10-year contract. That seems to be what these studs do when they're 25, 26 years old. So that's going to be what we're going to be looking at for here in the Yankees season for 2024 is how does Juan Soto fit in to the Yankee culture, and does he perform? If he does, more than likely he's going to get a huge payday, and he'll probably get that 10-year contract. The Yankees won't have any other choice but to re-sign him. That will not be much to our chagrin. We'll be happy about that, and we'll have to see who else the Yankees go after. Hopefully, Yamamoto is one of them. I know that he's being courted by several teams right now, and he's also asking for tons of money. So we'll have to see what happens there. But then there was the Ohtani situation. Everybody thought that he was going to be going to Toronto. That's where all the MLB insiders had him going. There was people that were tracking a plane that was supposed to be landing in Toronto with Ohtani on there so that he can have this huge party. And then it's just wait just a minute. The LA Dodgers are willing to put up whatever amount of money it is to get Ohtani to stay in LA. And that's what he did. So he gets the 10 years, $700 million contract. Unbelievable. Ohtani is a one of a kind baseball player, as we know. He's just so dominant on both sides of the play. He can hit, he can pitch, although the pitching part of it is where the question marks come into play. He's had a couple surgeries, and he's not going to be able to pitch in the 2024 season. Is he worth $700 million? Probably not. But if you're a team that's trying to contend and he's the best player out there and you have the money, then you might as well see what you can do and pony up the cash and go get him, right? They'll recoup some of that money back over the next 5 years, I'm sure, just from what he's going to produce for the Dodgers in ticket sales and merchandise. I think he'll probably end up landing as a closer as his career starts to dwindle down. But even if that's the case and he's able to be an elite closer and maintain his prowess at the plate, I think that it might be worth some of the 70 million per year. There's no way that it's going to be worth all 70 million per year unless the Dodgers win 5 World Series titles in the next 10 years. Their lineup is going to look something like this. It's going to be Mookie Betts, Ohtani, Freeman, Will Smith, Muncy. You'll have James Outman as on his sophomore season, and then probably somebody like Chris Taylor. Pretty good lineup. I'm sure the Dodgers are not done. And so we'll have to see what kind of lineup they have running out opening day 2024. The Yankees lineup is going to look something like this. You have LeMahieu, Judge, Soto, Stanton, if he's healthy, big asterisk, Anthony Rizzo, Gleyber Torres, and then they did get Verdugo, and they still have their sophomore season for Anthony Volpe. I would love to see a Yankees-Dodger World Series. Wouldn't be any better than that, in my opinion, but I know a lot of you listeners have some other favorite teams out there. That's where we're at in the world of baseball. I'm going to move over to the NFL right now. Last weekend, there was probably a million upsets. If you were betting, you probably lost every single one of them unless somehow you were able to pick these upsets. And so I'm going to rank them on an ouch factor. The lowest scale is pinched by a 95-year-old with arthritis. And then the middle scale is if you were stuck in a Ric Flair figure four leg lock. And then the absolute worst is being sucker punched by Mike Tyson. The Detroit Lions had no business losing to the Bears last weekend, although Vegas did have it pegged. If you guys listened last week, we had a fishy line on that one. It was +3 with the Bears. The line, in my eyes, should have been way more than that, but for whatever reason, Vegas had it pegged as a field goal game, and then what do you know? The Bears were able to pull off a huge upset. I would say that this is a Ric Flair whoa figure four leg lock because I do think that the Lions have a good chance to win their division. There's only 4 games left here in the NFL season. But what's a little bit concerning about the Lions is they're trending in the wrong direction right now. And so you almost wonder if this is borderline Mike Tyson, because when you're looking at the schedule and you're looking at the Bears, that should be a win, in my opinion. And unfortunately for the Lions, they weren't able to do so. Now they're going to have to tighten up the screws in these next 4 weeks. Stop turning the ball over and get back to whatever it was that was winning games in the first half of the season. They need to go back to their identity and get it right quickly. Miami with a very stunning loss to the Tennessee Titans. There was Will Levis on display in the fourth quarter. I don't know if his jersey is a youth medium, but it just seems like his arms are just protruding out of his jersey there. He's just lathered in oil and just ready to go. Will Levis to the rescue. And I would say Miami, yeah, from their perspective, you can't blow a lead like that in the fourth quarter. And if you have the ball and a field goal wins it, you just need to be able to take control over that situation and manage the 2-minute offense and get down the field and win the game. It's, I would say for them, probably still a figure four leg lock because Buffalo, where they're at in the division, Buffalo is gaining steam. But they do have a little bit of a cushion. So they're probably sitting okay right now. But again, just take care of business and win the games you're supposed to win. Now, Philly, they go on the road, they lose to Dallas. That's a sucker punch by Mike Tyson all day long. Because what's happening right now is you have Dallas tied with Philadelphia atop the division, which a couple weeks ago, we wouldn't have been talking about that at all. Philadelphia looked like they were in the driver's seat to be in the number 1 seed in the NFC, no problem. And as it stands right now, Dallas, they win the tiebreaker between them and the Eagles. They're tied for first right now, record-wise, but Philly loses their lead in the division, and they didn't look good doing it. So will this roll into anything else? I don't know. They've lost 2 in a row to 2 really good teams. But as it stands right now, that's an ouch factor of Mike Tyson has you in the ropes and he's just pounding on you right there. I'm sure the Philly fans were really upset about that loss, especially the way they look. So let's move over to Kansas City here. They're talk about another team going in the wrong direction. They're almost at a point now that you don't even know if you trust whether or not they're going to actually make a run in the playoffs, let alone even win their division. And who would have ever have thought that Denver would only be one game behind Kansas City going into the final 4 weeks of this season, especially after Denver lost 900-5 against the Dolphins early in the season. Nobody thought Denver had a chance. Give credit to Denver for hanging in there and making this a close race. So that's Mike Tyson again with the Chiefs. I know that there was some questionable calls in that game, and there has been some questionable calls over the last couple weeks in reality. But you just sometimes that's the way that the cookie crumbles, unfortunately. And you have to somehow try to find a way to win the game. And Kansas City was unable to do. It'll be interesting to see what happens with them over the next couple weeks here, because if they end up losing the division, they're going to be in trouble. Some honorable mentions from last weekend. The Texans went down. They also lost their quarterback, potentially Stroud. For how long, we do not know. Possibly a couple weeks. Even if they lose him for a week, that's huge because Stroud is the only reason why the Texans are where they are. And they do not have Matt Schaub backing him up. So they're going to be in trouble if Stroud can't come back. The Falcons lose to the almighty Bucks, and they actually lost control over the putrid NFC South, I must say. Mm, But the bottom line is the Bucks were able to finish the game strong. Baker Mayfield didn't look so good. I think he had 100 passing yards going into the last part of the game there. But the Tampa Bay defense has been doing this all season. They're keeping the game close, and the Bucks have had chances to have a much better record than what they have, but it's enough right now to be in first place. Whether or not they can hold on to that remains to be seen. I think the Steelers' loss was gross. They had no business losing that game that way. Trubisky should not be a backup quarterback anymore. I don't even understand how he still has that title. And I think that the Steelers are done. So we'll see if these teams do what they're supposed to do over the next couple weeks. Moving over to the end, the Orlando Magic, they're 3-2 in December. They're second place in the East right now through the first quarter of the season, roughly. After seeing the way the Magic played last year, this is really exciting for this team. They're coming off of a win against the Cavaliers, which they're a scrappy team. That was a good win. They have a back-to-back with Boston. Both games are in Boston this week. What I would be looking for is, can the Magic somehow just walk away with a split? Boston's number one on the East right now. I don't know if they have enough firepower to sweep this 2-game series. If they can walk away 1-1 out of this, I think you'll take that if you're the Magic. Banchero and Wagner have cracked the top 50 in points per game in the NBA. They both are in there. What the Magic need to do, though, is they need to find a prolific shooter, preferably somebody that's somewhat of a veteran. And I think they need to find a facilitator. So the Magic have a glutton of guards on their roster. Assists per game should not be a problem, but right now their leading player in assist category is Banchero. He's averaging 4 assists per game. That's not good. Banchero shouldn't be leading the team in assists. There should be somebody else on the court that is facilitating and distributing to Banchero. What I would be looking for from the Magic perspective is landing somebody maybe like Malcolm Brogdon. He's the best of both worlds. He's shooting close to 40% from three-point land. He should be available. He's in Portland right now. He's in the abyss. Nobody even pays attention to Portland. He's a top 20 assister. And if I were the Magic at the trade deadline, I would go after somebody like him. Buddy Hield would be available as well. It looks like the Pacers have a glutton of guards as well. And Buddy Hield doesn't seem to be favored so much in the rotation. He's averaging 13 points a game and shooting 40% from three-point land. So if they could get either one of those guys, I would prefer Brogdon out of those two, but either one would be great for the Magic. I don't know if they'll be in on somebody like Pascal Siakam because he's another player that has been bounced around in trade talks for this year. I could see Markelle Fultz being traded. I could see Wendell Carter being traded. I think that the Magic have put themselves in a really good position here where they're winning games, they're young, they have tons of salary flexibility, and they can go out and make some moves at the deadline. And it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. Going over to the West, I think it's pretty interesting right now. The Lakers won the in-season tournament, which this was the first year that they did something like this. What I liked about it is that Saturday night, it was just the Army Navy games during the day, and there was only one NBA game at night, and it was the Pacers Lakers. So there really wasn't a lot of competing games that were happening. And so they put the game in a spotlight on a pedestal, and it made it seem like it was higher stakes than really what it is. I mean, it nothing really happens from being the champion of that, but it's cool nevertheless. I think it's funny that the Lakers were the team to win it because that is what LeBron James does, right? They won the bubble tournament, they win the in-season tournament, but yet he hasn't been able to do anything in the actual playoffs in what, 7 years? I can't even remember. A couple of things in the West that I thought was of note here. So the Timberwolves are in first place. They're tearing it up right now. Edwards is lighting it up. You got Karl Anthony Towns. At home, they're 10-1 right now. They're a force to be reckoned with, and I wouldn't have guessed that going into the season. I thought that they would be in the playoffs. They were a playoff team for sure. I never would have guessed them to be number 1 with OKC trailing them. Obviously, this is a little early in the season, so teams like Dallas, Denver, maybe even Sacramento, you'll see them maybe make some runs. The Lakers are hanging in there right now. Whether or not they can stay healthy is gonna be the big question for them. The Phoenix Suns, we don't know what's gonna happen with them yet because they don't have all 3 of their big 3 hasn't really been playing together. Case in point, Durant didn't play against Golden State, and Phoenix was able to still win that game, but they're just sitting at 13-10 right now. Whether or not they break the barrier and they're a top 3 Western Conference team when it's all said and done, who knows? But they obviously have the firepower to do. I would say a couple gross things to point out here is Golden State is 10-13. If the playoffs started today, they'd be out. They're struggling. I don't know what it is that they need to do, but they're gonna need to probably trade Chris Paul and try to find another chemistry element to that roster because they're not getting any younger. Steph Curry is running out of time to make runs for these title records that I know that he's going for. And so you would love to see them do something different. It's almost sad to see, would they trade somebody like Draymond Green? Maybe. Do I think they should? Yeah, I do. Going over to college football right now, it's supposed to be bowl season, which it is. The bowl season starts up this weekend. But what's happening right now, it's just madness with the transfer portal and National Signing Day all happening around the same time. I can't even imagine what these coaches are thinking, right? So they're probably not preparing for these bowl games. I don't see how they would have time to because they have to court these five-star athletes and all of these players that they're trying to have transfer in and these high school athletes that need to be shown the campus and the program and give me wine and dine. I can only imagine how much money is being thrown around right now in the world of college football with quarterbacks, especially. It almost seems if you're either a 5-star, 4-star quarterback coming out of high school, or if you're a transfer quarterback, it's almost like you're automatically going to get $1 million right now. And so I think that's pretty amazing. That's where this whole thing has landed. For Florida State's purposes, they're going to be looking for a couple defensive ends. They're going to be hosting Cam Ward from Washington State. And also, I think that they call him DJU to make things easy on everyone. I'll be interested to see who Florida State goes after or who they actually sign in that situation. It looks like they're not sold on Rodemaker. And I think that's interesting because they have Brock Glenn, they have Hook, two young quarterbacks who are highly touted that are going to be on the roster. Then you have Rodemaker, and then you bring in a transfer quarterback. I'm not really sure what that does. I don't know if that means that Rodemaker has to transfer or what, but interesting to see what Florida State does because obviously they have to stay in the world where they can win the ACC. And if they don't think they can do it with Rodemaker, then they're going to have to move on. If you've made it this far, you're probably wondering what the heck is happening. Like, is Hav just going to do the show by himself from now on? That is not the case. Byrne was, I think, at a concert, and Bijan had about 5 different things that was happening in his world. So in order for us to be able to stay diligent and get you guys the content that you deserve, I decided to do it solo. So if you guys end up liking this more, don't be shy. Send me a text or message me on social media and I can ditch those other guys, right? Like we can make that happen. I'll talk to the producer. I'm just messing. I miss you guys. They did give me their picks. So I'm going to run through a couple games for you guys. This is Don't Be Nasty segment of the show. So there's a couple college football games that we're going to be watching this weekend. UCLA Boise State in the Starco Brands Louisiana Bowl. It's weird that's even a bowl game, but that is what we're dealing with right now. Both teams are without their starting quarterbacks, and one team is actually even without their coach. Boise State is that team. UCLA still has Chip Kelly. This is Boise State's +2. UCLA is going to win this game. We don't know what these teams are going to look like with their backup quarterbacks, but at least UCLA has the infrastructure in place where they have Chip Kelly there. So I would say if you were betting, bet responsibly. Take UCLA in this one. The next game is the Avocados from Mexico Cure Bowl. You got the MAC champs versus the Sun Belt runner-up. That is Miami of Ohio versus Appalachian State is -6.5. Miami of Ohio is without their first string quarterback, Brett Gabbert, not to be confused with Blaine Gabbert. And then their backup quarterback who won the MAC conference title game, Miami of Ohio, is down to their third string quarterback. And I don't know if you watched the Florida State ACC championship game when we were running out our third string quarterback. That doesn't normally work out so well. So I would say in this particular situation, I'd go with Appalachian State. They have their quarterback. Take them -6.5 to cover. It might even be more than that. Moving over to the NFL, Buffalo is favored by 1.5 points versus the Cowboys. This is an exciting game to watch, right? Dallas is coming off a huge win. The problem for Dallas is that they're horrible on the road. And Buffalo, to the contrary, is great at home. And Buffalo is also starting to slowly show signs of the team that we thought they were going to be at the beginning of the season. Whether or not this is a huge game for both teams, I think the difference on this one is going to be the home field advantage. I think they're pretty equal. So I think that Dallas is going to lose this game. Just so you guys know, Byrne and Bijan also picked UCLA. They also picked App State and they also picked Buffalo. We have 3 clean sweeps. You guys can take these to the bank. All right. Baltimore travels to the lovely city of Jacksonville. The Jags are getting +3.5 at home. Trevor Lawrence is playing. Whether or not he should be playing is another question. I really wonder how healthy he really is. I know that there's probably this stigmatism in the NFL that you see it with Herbert. There's a lot of quarterbacks out there that do it. They play through the injuries and it's expected almost, right? But I don't know if that's the best decision. Sometimes you have to take a week off, maybe even 2 weeks, and get healthy so that when you're on the field, you're the player that your team needs you to be. The Jags are a little bit in desperation mode right now. They're only 1 game ahead of the Colts in the division. The Ravens are not bad on the road. The Ravens are having a really good season. Very oddly, the Jags are bad at home. They're one of those quirky teams that prefer to play on the road. I think the AFC South is gonna tighten up even more after this game. Baltimore is gonna win this game by a touchdown or more. Bajan agrees with me, and then Byrne went with his heart and took the Jags to cover. Last game on the docket is Philly traveling to Seattle. Is this a trap game? I don't know. The 3.5 was the same line in the Jacksonville game. I don't like when Vegas does that. They do the 3 in the hook to entice bettors to think that the home team can cover. I don't think that you should fall for it, especially in this scenario. Philly is in a must-win situation, and they could take, depending on what happens in the Dallas-Buffalo game, they could take back control over the division that they've been atop this whole entire freaking season. And they're a good road team, differential-wise. I would say there's really no other stat to look at here. I don't even know if Geno Smith's gonna play on Sunday. Obviously, Seattle is a tough place to play, but I don't think you need to be worried about that if you're gonna be sprinkling some cheese on this bad boy. I would take Philly all day long in this game. I think they're gonna bounce back in a major way. Those are the games to be looking at this weekend. And that's do it for this week's episode of Sports Caviar. I really hope that you guys enjoy what we're doing here. We would really love it if you could just hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. If you did it on Spotify and Apple as well, that'd be great. Just subscribe to all different outlets. If you hit us up on social media and tell us anything that you want us to talk about, it could be sports related, it could be something that has nothing to do with sports. Just send it over to us and we'll talk about it. We'll give you a shout out. Be on the lookout. We're going to be doing some stuff, as I mentioned, for some merchandise. I hope that you guys did all your Christmas shopping and looking forward to having the whole gang together next week. I really hope that you guys enjoy the rest of this weekend, and we'll talk to you next week. See you later.